Syracuse men's basketball is back in the heart of ACC action. After a tough loss to Clemson, there's only one team keeping SU from spiraling out of control. That happens to be the Pitt Panthers, a squad on a skid of its own. With both teams coming off a loss to Clemson, this matchup is about who can recuperate faster. Will it be the Orange, getting a much-needed bounce-back win? Or will it be the Panthers, who caused some chaos in the Dome? We're here to break it all down. The countdown is on, and it starts right now.
Welcome inside our CitrusTV studios for this freezing edition of Cuse Countdown. Alongside Sam, Reis, and Hudson, Ridley, I'm Srikar, Rajendran. I mean, the weather, fellas, my goodness. But luckily,
it's terrible.
My gas tank froze shut the other day. Actually, at the gas station, I used my
terrible.
Hudson, that's terrible.
I used my ice pick and I pried it open. Took 5 minutes. Very embarrassing.
Unlucky for you, but luckily for Syracuse, they are playing Pitt in the JMA Wireless Dome, which should be a little warmer. We're here to break it all down. But before we look forward, it's never a bad idea to look back. And I guess the past does hold some rough truths. Syracuse got blown out of the water by Clemson, 86-72. Sam, a lot of issues could be seen on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it's true. And you might look at the score, 86-72. Oh, it wasn't that bad against a good Clemson team, but it's a little deceiving because this was a 24-point deficit that Syracuse was facing at one point. And to be fair a little to the Orange, Hudson, they didn't shoot terribly like they usually do. 54% from the field. They actually went 11 for 21 from downtown, which was their best three-point shooting mark of the season. But there were some trends that continued, such as relying on JJ too much again. 25 points from him. Not enough other people stepped up. It's no coincidence that he scored 17 in the first half and then went pretty quiet in the second half, and that's why Syracuse crumbled.
Exactly. You have a good second half, but that doesn't matter if your first half is so abysmal. And I think this is what we can kind of expect at this point out of when Syracuse plays tournament teams. It's not going to be close. You look at it there, the turnover margin was one of the biggest issues. 14-7. Syracuse has continually struggled with those turnovers. And you wonder, they shoot 50-50-80 in this game, one of their best shooting splits all season. Why can't they get it done? Turnovers and defense.
Well, I suppose the Orange also haven't had the cleanest bill of health recently, especially when it comes to forward Donnie Freeman. The freshman has had a leg injury since January 4th, long time ago, and it's been labeled as a day-to-day injury, but we're yet to see him on the floor. Now, Syracuse has won 3 of 5 without him in the lineup, but Hudson, what does he bring to the court that's unique?
Well, what he brings is just a go-to scorer, right? What other go-to scorer is there on this team besides J.J. Starling and Donnie Freeman? I'm not confident you could give the ball to anybody else and tell them to go out and get a bucket. 13 and 8 boards is what he brings to this team. You lose all of that all of the sudden, and you lose a whole nother dimension to your team that you no longer have. Sure, was he the 5-star he was touted to be? He didn't live up to all that, but he's not playing on a great team. This is part of the reason why, is because we're realizing there's not much around him.
No, and also, if you didn't know already, whatever the height is that Freeman's listed at, that's a lie. I'm telling you straight up. That's a tall guy right there who averages 8 rebounds a game, too.
We all lie about our height, except he just lies and says he's a little short.
I'm the first to tell you. I'm a solid 5'7". Anyways, Donnie Freeman, you're taking away 8 rebounds a game right there, too. And that's a department where Syracuse has struggled as well. That size is gone. Yeah, second leading scorer. I mean, this guy was hyped up a lot for a reason, and he was delivering until that injury. It's a big blow. There's no mistake about it.
It certainly is.
Well, one player that has been in the lineup of late, none other than J.J. Starling. You could argue the star of this basketball team right now. Over 20 points in 4 of his last 5 games. Yeah. I mean, Sam, this guy is a bona fide leader and a reliable player who you can lean on to get buckets.
He is, and the unfortunate thing is he's the only reliable player to get buckets, Srikar. I hate to break it to you, but that's the reality. And honestly, I think Syracuse realizes that at this point of the season, Hudson, where they basically admitted, it's really the offense runs through Starling, and that's probably an understatement. Of course, it's massive to have him back. In fact, this guy, J.J. Starling, is such a baller that he's the only chance you have to win a game, basically. You're relying on him. And it's unfortunate because it's not a recipe for success. Because a lot of the time as well, watching this offense, it's great when Starling goes on runs. He can take over a game. He's proven that, Hudson.
Can, yeah.
But I hate the style of offense where everyone just basically clears out and it's JJ, do your thing. Now, a lot of times he's going to knock down those shots, but other games like the Louisville game, he's not going to show up, and you're going to get blown out of the water.
Exactly. You get 4 points from Starling in that Louisville game. He can't be your entire offense. Now, he's learned to distribute a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's inconsistent. Had no assists against Clemson. This is a guy where it's going to continually be up and down, but I will say he's playing the best stretch of basketball in his life. Up until that Boston College game, he hadn't had 2 back-to-back games of 20-plus point scoring from a guy that averaged 20 points.
Wow.
Make the math make sense? I have no idea how that happens. Never in his college career had that happen, so he's playing the best stretch in his life right now.
Well, even with the points Starling is putting up, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows for this SU offense because the shooting is abysmal. Bottom 2 in the conference in three-point percentage, hovering at around 30%. Jeez. Hudson, what does this team need to do to bump those numbers up?
Stop shooting threes, I guess, would be the only answer, or shoot smarter threes. Now, you have to have games like you did against Clemson. Yeah, stop shooting them in general. That might be the idea. But against Clemson, their splits were good, right? 55% from the floor, 53% from 3, 83% from the line. If you get that any day from Syracuse, boy, that's a dream, and they'd actually win some games. But that is so unreliable. Your best three-point shooter last year has been completely non-existent. Can you believe Chris Bell made 8 threes and a half one time? I don't think he could make 8 threes in
a season,
in a stretch of 2 games at this point. Chris Bell, it is true. Chris Bell has been so off his game. That's the problem. You get him back, you get Elijah Moore a little comfortable, maybe, but this team just can't shoot threes. They can't do it.
Yeah, I'm declaring that Clemson game a fluke. It was a fluke.
Yeah.
They're not going to shoot like that ever again this season from 3 because they're just way too inconsistent. As you said, their only dependable scorer is J.J. Starling. Yeah, you have Elijah Moore disappearing, by the way. Chris Bell, I don't know where he's been. It's been frustrating, Srikar.
And lately for Syracuse, it's also been frustrating with the inability to play all 4 quarters. Let's harken back to that Notre Dame game. You're down double digits at the half, and then you outscore the Irish by 17 in the second half. I mean, Sam, we really got to question the sustainability of wins like these.
True. Maybe it would help if it was 4 quarters on the inside for this team to kind of regroup at times because I don't know what it is. But again, the tail was flipped a little bit last game where they did compete with Clemson for a lot of that first half. But even so, Clemson began to separate towards the end of that frame. But this last stretch of games, it has been a theme. You know, Notre Dame, sure, you come back, but why are you getting yourself into that big of a hole early? These slow starts have been very frustrating for the Orange. I say I don't know why it is, but it's because J.J. Starling has started slow in some of these games, and no one else can step up. And again, that's the issue. That's the main issue. The offense runs through Starling. If he has a slow start, the rest of the team doesn't step up, Hudson.
Who's there to pick up the slack? You look at the first half and second half totals, right? Syracuse was outscored by Clemson in that first half by 19 points. Sure, they win the second half, but it doesn't matter. And we hear Coach Autry talk all the time about, okay, well, we need to win each 4-minute game. We need to win 4-minute games. Well, I'll tell you what, they're losing about 3 straight 4-minute games from the 12-minute mark of the first half to the 0-minute mark of the first half. Every single time, they cannot seem to get over that hump. They suck at winning in those situations.
I think the 3 of us have had enough of some Syracuse talk for the time being. It's time to break down the opponent. The Pitt Panthers are entering the Dome in a bit of a slide. We're going to discuss this team when we come back on the Countdown.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at It's On Us.
Welcome back to Cuse Countdown. That's Sam Reis. That's Hudson Ridley. I'm Srikar Rajendran. Breaking down Syracuse and Pitt, the latter on a fairly long losing streak, 4 games. But you look at those 4 games, it ranged from blowouts against Duke and Florida State, and some close ones also to Louisville and Clemson. So Hudson, what can we take away from the losing streak as a whole?
Well, what I take away from the losing streak is Pitt is a normal team, right? The games that they had to play were incredibly tough. Teams 1, 2, 3, and 8 in the ACC. Duke was a blowout, but sure, that's going to happen. Louisville, they made it respectable, and Pitt, they were close with Clemson. An overtime loss for them. Florida State was a bit tough. They ranked 8th in the ACC, but this is not something to be upset with if you're Pitt. This is just a rough stretch of games that they're playing right now. I see them riding the ship, certainly.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a good way to put it. They're a normal team because a lot of those games early on in the season, were against teams they should beat, and they got the job done to their credit. But once these ACC opponents started to ramp up, we saw Pitt, lose some of these games, and some close ones as well. They could have easily beat Louisville or Clemson. And again, I think the Panthers are in a position where they're still a tournament team, but they got to get back onto winning ways. A great chance to do that against a Syracuse team that has struggled recently.
And one of the driving factors behind this SU offense is indeed their backcourt tandem of Jalen Lowe and Ishmael Leggett. Both are averaging 15 points a game, super dynamic playmakers. Hudson, what can we expect from these two when they go up against this SU defense?
I was going to say, I might even have better stuff than Sam. Let's go take a look here in the wall at what makes these two so dangerous. Leggett is a fantastic passer, and you'll see it here in this first clip. The way that he manipulates the defense is impressive. Pause it right there. Well, if you didn't already see it, what he did, he's on the floor right there because he drove so hard in the paint, made the defense collapse, kicked it out. They have a good idea of spacing. Now, let's roll this clip again, and let's see what Jaden Lowe does that's a little bit different. His scoring ability in the paint is a lot better than Leggett. So what does he do on, plays like this, the kick to the corner, the three-pointer? Obviously, that with Lowe is pretty impressive. But look, here is what we have on the other end. Driving through, pause it right here, the floater up top. And the reason that is, watch the defense all contract around, backside, no help, slam down. Syracuse has to avoid that.
Yeah, they really do. And what I love about this duo of Lowe and Leggett, who are the only 2 players on the same team that are top 10, by the way, in ACC scoring, is the chemistry they have. So let's roll some tape on this duo connecting with each other. And what I mean by this is it's a drive inside by Lowe. He kicks to the corner, and Leggett drains the 3. Now we're going to slow it down a bit because look at this. A screen, Lowe drives in the lane. He could easily hit the layup here, but it's almost a no-look pass. He knows his guy Leggett's going to be there in the corner. The defender squeezed in. That left Leggett open. He said, "Thank you very much. I'll cash in the 3." This is a dangerous duo that could cause a lot of problems for Syracuse inside the dome, but I know who doesn't have a problem at the desk is our guy Srikar Rajendran. Let's go back to you, Srikar.
Oh yeah, no problems for me, but Syracuse's offense, as you guys both eloquently put it, could be in some trouble. Leggett and Lowe both are forces on offense, and we look at that Clemson game, we look at what Chase Hunter did to this offense before. I would say Syracuse is in a bit of danger here. It's going to be interesting to see how they play up on defense. But flipping perspectives now and looking at it from Pitt's defense and that perspective, that defense is nothing to play around with. Second most blocks in the ACC, a solid interior presence in Zach Austin, Guillermo Diaz-Graham as well. So Sam, SU really needs to tread carefully.
They do, and it's funny because, we were talking earlier about how Syracuse should stop shooting the 3, but if they try to drive into the lane against this Pitt team, they might also have some problems. I will say, though, the Orange last time out against Clemson only earned 3 trips to the line, 6 free throws. So if you can find a way to somehow get this Pitt team in foul trouble, get some trips to the line, it could be a bully ball, grind it out type of game. But with that being said, this is also a Pitt team that is very intentional with how they defend. They also average over 7 steals per game, which is about 3 more than Syracuse. So it's not going to be easy to navigate the paint. You might have to settle for some mid-range jumpers in this one, if that.
That's true. Second in blocks in the ACC, and there's a good reason. It's all that length on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Syracuse does not have the length to compete with that, and we'll touch on that a little bit later.
Right.
But it makes the intricacies of this game so difficult because you can't go out and jack the 3 because you suck at hitting the three-pointer. But then on the other end, if you drive the lane, that's when bad things happen.
Yeah.
You get swatted back.
Well, we just alluded to it. Zach Austin, Cameron Corrin, Guillermo Diaz-Graham, all strong guys who are taller and can play bully ball in the paint. So Hudson, how do you view the size advantage in this one? Is it too much of a problem, or is it something not to be too worried about?
Oh, it's drastic. It's the reason I have Syracuse losing this game, which we'll get to a little bit later. The problem right now that Syracuse has is all they have in the paint is Eddie Lampkin. And, I mean, he's not T-Rex arms. You see his arms up there. They're a little bit big. But that wingspan that he has and his go-to shot being a baby hook, really bad combination against the wingspan of Guillermo Diaz-Graham. Both Diaz-Grahams, for that matter, with long wingspans. Federico gone. Zach Austin in. 1.5 blocks per game. He's been crushing. And Cameron Corrin down low at 6'10". They have 5 players, 6'10" or up. It's a dangerous team.
It is, and 7, 6, 8 or taller, and including both of the Diaz-Graham brothers. It's a tall team, to say the least. And if you're wondering how that compares to Syracuse, to your point, they only have 4 total players who are 6'8" and above. And Naheem McLeod, he doesn't count, he doesn't play. Peter Majstorovic, Donnie Freeman, he's out. Eddie Lampkin's really the only one, to your point. That's really the only guy you have that's playing consistently that can even put up some sort of fight, considering the size advantage this Pitt team has. I think it's going to be a problem, Srikar.
This could be a Naheem McLeod game. This could be a Naheem McLeod game.
Could it be? We'll see.
7'4".
We'll see. But stay in your seats, folks, and I'll make sure the desk is set up for you. Not this one. Your individual desk at home, because we are going back to school. Our analysts are going to get to some grading on this SU squad. We'll be right back. We're getting a little bit studious here on Cuse Countdown alongside Sam Reis and Hudson Ridley. I'm Srikar Rajendran, and welcome to the classroom. Look, I'm the professor here, but think of these guys as my professors in training. I'm going to see how they grade this SU squad. And we're going to start with the newbies, the freshmen, the new faces, guys we have not seen on the court. So think about guys like Jaquan Carlos, Eddie Lampkin, Donnie Freeman. Sam, I'll start with you. How would you grade this unit so far?
Yeah, Hudson's clearly prepared more than me for class session because he has the pen ready to go. And Syracuse, some of its new faces have not delivered in the classroom, just like me. I'm giving a C+ for this Syracuse team in terms of the new faces on this team. And I don't think that's too harsh because especially guys like Jaquan Carlos and Jair Davis in particular, who were stars at Delaware and Hofstra respectively, you know, some of the best players in the CAA, and I get this is an upgrade, but they've been very underwhelming for me. Way too inconsistent for this team. And I will say, you know, Lampkin is someone who has delivered in my opinion. I love the big fella. I like the way he plays. He has been averaging around a double-double as of late, but he's really the only new face that's been more or less consistent from me. And if we're throwing some freshmen in there like Elijah Moore and Donnie Freeman, Elijah's disappeared. Donnie has been injured. That's why I have to give them a C+. And Eddie Lampkin, believe it or not, is the guy who raises the grade up a little bit for Syracuse.
Interesting that you say that. I actually have a little bit of a different approach. Okay. I grade this higher, but it's not because of Lampkin. Give me a B right now for where this team is with their new faces. Okay. Now, I know that might sound like, oh, Well, that's a little bit high in terms of what the expectations were. Well, if you look at how they're set up for the future, I really like the way Donnie Freeman plays. And if he gets back healthy, especially for next year, I think he's coming back next year because he's not ready for the NBA unless he transfers, which is a complete possibility.
Could be.
Elijah Moore right now is in a crowded room with the shooting opportunities a little bit squeezed. Give him more room, he'll be fine. And Petar Majstorovic, I think he's a fantastic player down the line. Right now, he's just trying to find his footing. The issue is, though, with this team, the veterans, that brings them down from an even higher grade, in my opinion. I'm really just solely grading that on the freshmen.
Well, nice segue, because we can't talk about the new faces unless we talk about the vets, too. We're all on an equal playing ground here. Sir Hudson, you kind of alluded to it, but what's your grade in that regard?
Give me a C-, and the only thing that's holding me up right here on this C-, that passes, by the way. C- does pass.
It's not a good grade, though. It's not a good grade.
It's not a good grade. Yeah, same. The only thing that holds this C- up is the fact that I kind of like Jair Davis, and I think Eddie Lampkin is okay. Lucas Taylor is an absolute non-factor, even when he does score 10 points, which he had a little run of a couple games where he was doing that. Jaquan Carlos has not been as advertised. He's barely had a couple assist games, maybe 4 or 5 assist games. He had one of 19 back at Northeastern, rather playing Northeastern when he was on Hofstra. And all the chatter was, well, he had 19 assists in a game. This guy can ball out. Well, turns out that was a lie. We haven't gotten anything from him. There's been so many gaps in what these veterans are supposed to bring to the team. Don't even get me started on guys like Chris Bell. That you already know. That right now is pretty much a lost cause with this team the way it is.
So we did have a little bit of a different interpretation here, which is okay. You know, the students sometimes interpret the professor a little differently.
That is true.
I viewed veterans as players who are back for Syracuse.
That's fair.
And so I gave them a C.
Okay.
And you might be wondering why. J.J. Starling obviously carrying this team on the court in the classroom for this purpose. I also like Kyle Cuff.
Okay, that's fair.
Kyle Cuff has made significant improvements. I think Kyle Cuff should be starting, by the way.
I like that. I like that plan.
Former national champion with the Jayhawks.
People
forget.
He play?
No. But he's playing now. He's taking advantage of his minutes without a doubt, and I've really liked his playing style and the energy he brings off the bench. Now, the guy bringing that grade down is a guy named Chris Bell.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what happened. This guy was projected to potentially be, one of the best three-point shooters in the conference, and he was at times last year, and he's just a shell of himself. He can't knock down shots. I did not see this coming heading into the season. I didn't, Hudson.
Not at all.
Chris Bell drags that grade down a little bit. It's a C, still passing.
Guys, a little bit of an honesty check here, but do you guys have it in your heart to give out an A? Is it in
I do. You see the B right there, but for this team, you have to earn an A.
Okay.
Right? You have to earn an A.
Well, who better to earn an A than Mr. A himself, Adrian Autry. Common topic of discourse here. Oh, okay, Sam. Okay. If you want to get into it, there's been a lot of discourse about his job in year 2, but contrasted with year 1, Sam, what have you thought, and what would you give Adrian Autry in terms of a grade?
Yeah, first off, sorry for interrupting you, Professor.
No worries.
But
no worries.
I'm still going to give out my grade. Adrian Autry absolutely gets a D. And he's lucky to get a D.
Pass.
It's a big doom for Adrian Autry, and that's why he gets a D. And listen, you can say it's harsh. I don't care that it's year 2, Hudson. This is a storied program we're talking about at Syracuse University. In fact, we're not seniors, but the seniors here are the first class Srikar is, and they're the first class since the 70s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that hasn't experienced an NCAA tournament in their time here. A quicker turnaround was expected. You reached 20 wins last year, and you somehow got a lot worse. And I know you might be saying, there's only so much Adrian Autry can do, but these are his players he brought in, and they're not delivering. That has to go on him. He has no answers, and I'll tell you what, to be at around 500 in almost February, unacceptable. Yeah, it's January 23rd. Unacceptable. It's a D for Adrian Autry. It's not harsh. It's not.
I'm going to wrap your knuckles here like Catholic school, alrighty? Because there's one thing that we're not considering, right? I give him a C+. And here's the reason why. I know that might seem a little bit high. Adrian Autry, C+. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
But the reason is, it's all on recruiting, right? He is a coach that's a little slow to adapt. We'll admit that, right? A little slow to adapt. Sometimes looks a little bit clueless. But here is why. You said it's all his players, right? These guys suck. His players suck, right? And
Yeah,
what
but
can
he brought
do?
these transfers in.
What can he do at a certain... Yeah, he brought his transfers in. That's why I have him at a C+, because I think his transfers were bad. He's a coach that's supposed to be all about the recruiting,
better
right?
players.
Get better players. That's exactly why he's at a C+. The reason that he's not at a D is because at this point, what can he do when your players are bad?
Guys, I'm a little scared because what these guys don't know is to pass this professor training exam. This was my paper on Syracuse basketball, but based on how you graded this, I'm kind of scared to give you this paper, so I'm going to withdraw that request right now.
Give it a curve. Give it a curve. That's fine.
There's no curving here. You just gave Adrian Autry a D. I mean,
true.
there's no
Yes,
curving.
I did.
And you sounded harsh too, but I do respect the reasoning, fellas.
Thank you.
Fantastic job. And when we come back on Cuse Countdown, we are wrapping up shop. It's time to think big picture. We'll be going over the ACC standings and giving our picks for the game. Right back. For the final time, welcome back to Cuse Countdown. Alongside Sam Reis and Hudson Ridley, I'm Srikar Rajendran. Time slowly fading away here, but just a bit more to talk about before Syracuse takes on Pitt. And especially, we got to think big picture, all right? We got to think a little bit more macro here. The ACC in a really interesting spot, Hudson, in terms of the standings. What are you seeing that intrigues you?
Well, if you look all the way at the bottom, and even past that, it's Miami all the way down at the bottom.
Yeah.
That has surprised me. Miami has had a harder fall-up than any program you could imagine. But at the top, well, second from the top, Louisville. I love the way they play. This is a team that I think has Elite Eight potential. And then, honestly, Syracuse surprises me because somehow they're in the middle of this pack and not dead last.
Yeah, I mean, hey, when there's 18 teams in the conference, I guess it's hard to be dead last.
That is true.
Syracuse is nearing that territory. And yeah, what Pat Kelsey is doing at Louisville, that's the surprise. What stands out to me, Srikar, Duke, they're too good for this conference. I mean, this is not a great conference, let's be real. And Duke is just dominating. Could this backfire on me and Duke doesn't win the ACC title? Maybe. Upsets happen. But, the Blue Devils are too darn good for the ACC. They're on another level. Everyone else well beneath them.
Well, you look at the next three games for Syracuse coming up. You got this Pitt game, and then you got Stanford, you got Cal. It's all winnable, but then you got Duke coming up right after that. So a big contrast there. But in terms of this game against Pitt, Hudson, I'll start with you. What does Syracuse need to do in this game to get the win?
Well, they have to be physical. And I think a big part of the problem that Syracuse has in this game is the fact that they face so much height, right? We talked about it, that there's 5 players over 6'10". You've got that drilled into your brain right now. But the amount of players that they have to have Eddie Lampkin outmatched in the paint is really shocking. So what Syracuse and especially the guards have to do, take it to those bigs. Get them in foul trouble. You cannot allow Pitt to continue to dominate the inside of the paint all game long without having to be worried. J.J. Starling is great at driving to the rack. Kyle Cuff is great at getting to the cup and then doing something crazy and sometimes drawing a foul. Lean on that and even lean into that. Stop jacking up these threes because sooner or later you're going to get dominated in the paint down low. It's going to be over on the defensive end and the offense won't be able to catch up if you shoot too many threes.
Yeah, and the offense also won't be able to catch up if this Pitt team comes out flying out of the gates, which could happen with Lowe and Leggett. It's a duo I'm very high on, as you saw in the film breakdown. I had a fun time doing that. And we discussed the slow starts for the Syracuse team. It's been a real issue. So you got to come out with energy out of the gates if you're the Orange. If you can keep it with a close game, even be in front for large portions of this first half, I think the Syracuse team stands a chance. Not really, but they might if they do that. But you got to come out with energy, and that's been lacking so far. Come on, you're on your home court. Bring the energy. That's the key. Should I say it again? Energy.
Energy. Well, do you think they're going to bring the energy? What's going to happen in this game, Sam? Score prediction right now.
Pitt's going to win on the road. Yeah, they're on a 4-game losing streak, this, that, and the other. But, they've had some close losses against good ACC teams. This is still a talented Panthers team that I think will get into March Madness. The size is too much to handle. You touched on it as well. 84-71. I've got the Panthers getting the win with relative ease. Syracuse will keep it close for a while, but Pitt will take off towards the end, and Syracuse will fall back below 500. Nothing new, unfortunately.
I view it in the same exact way as that Clemson game. You flip it. Syracuse dominated to start. They get dominated, rather.
Okay, sure.
Then they flip it around and make it a close game at the end. Still, 82-71 Pitt, almost the same score as you. This is a team coached by Jeff Capel. I think they're very talented. I don't think this bodes well for Syracuse.
You know what? I'm a glass half full guy. I'll go 74-70 Syracuse in this one. At home, I think they get the job done. Well, we want to thank you for tuning in to this edition of Cuse Countdown. For Hudson, Ridley, Sam, Reis, and myself, Srikar, Rajendran, we want to say thank you, and we hope you enjoy the game.